Hello and welcome to Brave Talks. Today I'm really happy to have Emma, and we normally ask people to introduce themselves, so I'm going to hand it over to you. Who is Emma?
You asked me to prepare this question. I was like, what can I say about myself? So in the context of where we are, I'm an analyst and a consultant, but I thought to myself, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper, thinking about the topic of what we're going to chat about today. So probably 5 years ago, before I initiated recovery, I would have defined myself as maybe broken or lost. But I find that now that I'm pretty much recovered, I can define myself in so many more ways. I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a best friend, I'm a partner, I'm a performer, I'm a baker, and I'm so much more than just the manifestation of a mental illness.
Eating disorders are fairly common, but not talked about very much. So what made you want to talk about it today?
Yeah, so you're right. The eating disorders, they are really common. Like in any time in the UK, there's between 1.25 and 3.4 million sufferers of eating disorders. Now, typically when you think of eating disorders, what springs to mind is maybe the image of a really slim young girl who restricts her food intake to become skinny. But that archetype, probably anorexia nervosa, only accounts for around 8% of all of the eating disorders in the UK. So we tend to minimize and generalize eating disorders to this one archetype. But that can be really harmful, because it takes away the reality of what eating disorders are, and it minimizes the ability for people to recognize that these are issues that could impact them, therefore minimalizes their ability to seek help because they don't think that this is something that I can be affected by. Because eating disorders, they don't discriminate, they can impact anybody. So talking like we are now, you probably may have never even heard of the eating disorder that I've got, which is OSFED, which is other specified feeding and eating disorder. So expanding our understanding of what it means to have an eating disorder and what this entails can really help people down the line to seek the help that they need.
How do people know when they need to ask for help? Because I think that must be the hardest point to get to. It is, I need help, I need to reach out to someone. So how did your experience, how did that happen for you?
So what happened with me, I'll just give you a quick rundown of my story. So about a year before I went to university in 2017, I was severely overweight. And I thought it was always my dream to be on stage, to be a performer. Um, but through experience and through speaking with various people, it's common that people who are overweight don't get parts in various shows. So it was my ambition to go to university, get a degree, while there lose weight, so that one day I could go to drama school and make the dream happen. So from there, so the year before uni, I got a bike, I started losing weight, so I was eating a little bit cleaner. And moving into uni, obviously you don't have as much money, you can't access all the rubbishy foods and all of that. But it got to the point where it was getting really obsessive. I was limiting my calories to probably like 800 a day, which is obviously nowhere near enough. I was losing weight really, really rapidly. So in 2 years, give or take, I lost about half of my body weight, which is a really, really rapid rate of weight loss, as you know, probably. Um, and where the point when I thought I need help is because I started experiencing things that I'd never had before. My walk from campus to where I was living at the time in my second year of university, this is by then, um, wasn't that long. It was all downhill. It was really easy. But because my body fat had dropped to such a low percentage, I was experiencing Raynaud's like I never had before. So I literally couldn't walk 100 feet on a summer's day because everything was numb. Um, there were also things like I was a bit of an outcast because my brain was focusing on numbers and food and everything all the time, that it was too much anxiety and too much stress to even begin to think about going out for dinner or drinks with friends or whatever like that. And I was really kind of numb. Like emotionally, I didn't really feel joy anymore. I didn't want to be on the stage anymore. One, because I didn't have the energy, and two, I just didn't feel like I was worthy enough to be on the stage anymore. Yeah, I'd lost the weight, which meant that in my mind, yeah, you can get a part, but I didn't have the energy to do that anymore. So the point that coming down the hill and not being able to walk was the key driver, like, you've got to get help. And also my best friend, I was talking to her about at the time. She lived 4 hours away, but we'd messaged and all of that sort of stuff. And she's a nurse, and she was like, you need to seek some treatment. You're getting really bad now. So that was my push to go get the treatment that I needed. But in other cases, it's really different. It depends on the eating disorder that a person suffers from. So anorexia nervosa is obviously the archetype and whatever, but there's so many different ones that have different symptoms. Like, you wouldn't expect the same symptoms for anorexia nervosa in bulimia, anorexia binge purge, pica, even Prader-Willi syndrome can be defined as an eating disorder, but they all have completely different symptoms. So to recognize when you have an eating disorder is really seeing a change in yourself that's really damaging your quality of life, be it overeating, undereating, overexercising, those mood changes that I described, anything that really severely makes you change the way that you are thinking and behaving to the extent that you can't interact with food or exercise in a normal way is your key driver to go get the help you need. And obviously the physical manifestation of those thoughts and feelings in either really rapid weight gain or weight loss, stuff like that, is things to look out for.
Are there any warning signs that people outside of family and friends could look out for? Because it seems to me that there's so many things that it could point other directions rather than an eating disorder. I mean, is there things that people can look out for?
Yeah, so as I said, it really depends on the kind of eating disorder, but some of the things that you want to look out for just generically are an increase in food rules around meal times. So whether someone's really rapidly transitioned from a typical way of eating to maybe straight to veganism, or they cut up their food really small to make it look like they've eaten more, but they really haven't. Um, there's also frequent use of bathrooms either before or after a meal, because that can be a sign of bulimia or anorexia binge purge. Um, those are the things to really look out for physically, but also just a way in the way that the person interacts with either family, friends, or their surroundings is something to look out for.
The whole recovery process that you went through, because I'm sure there's a lot to say about that as well. It's not just about the food as well. It's about so many more things.
Yeah, so my recovery is still somewhat ongoing. It's been 5 years since I sought the help that I needed. So obviously my weight's restored. I was never clinically underweight, which meant that I didn't have anorexia nervosa, but my weight's restored to a more healthy level, and I don't really have the full food rules that I once had. So yeah, changing that part about thinking about food is a big part, obviously, and the physical weight restore, getting your bloods about right. Those are obviously really important, but it's a lot about changing your mental state as well. A lot of the time with my eating disorder, my mind was just crammed with numbers, like the amount of steps that I took, the calories that I ate, the grams of fat, every number that you can think of. And that whirlwind in your mind, it distracts you from everything else in life. It takes away everything else. So during your treatment process, they will find ways to calm you down, to kind of silence the voices in your mind, and kind of change the way that, because they speak to you, the voices in your mind, they speak to you, they tell you things that aren't true, about yourself, about the world around you. So it's about picking those apart. And one of the key techniques that I used, and I still do use a lot of the time, they use it in a lot of different therapies, but it's mindfulness. So you're just finding a quiet space when all of these things are going really loud in your mind. Just sit down and listen and sense everything around you, and it helps to kind of push them away so you can continue on with your day as normal. But it does take a lot of practice. So treatment is not something that it's not something that's really short. I think on average in the UK it takes about 8 years for a person to recover. Obviously, depending on the severity of the illness that they have going on. But it is possible to recover, and techniques that are developed with your therapist or with your nutritionist or whatever, they can really help you push past the barriers that you're facing.
I'm sure there was an impact to work as well when you were going through this initially, and then obviously going through the recovery process as well. Is there anything that the workplace can do to help or to be there for you?
So what I did when I was going through a relapse about a year-ish ago, year and a half maybe, was no one at work knew that I had this issue because it wasn't really physical on my body at the time. So I confided in my delivery manager, and they were able to make some adjustments to make sure that I was still able to work comfortably, and I was given a little bit extra patience because I was getting a bit snappy. But yeah, either confiding in a trusted colleague, delivery manager, whatever, is really helpful in getting the accommodations that you require. And also, I think most workplaces now, they have a mental health wellbeing services, so reaching out to them can be really, really useful. Either as just like a talking and listening services, or providing you extra options to go through to treatment, give you direction on those sorts of things.
So I'm really interested because you mentioned about the theatre as well. So obviously you had the challenges of wanting to lose weight to be in the theatre and to do the things that you want to do, and then you couldn't. So how was that journey for you from the theatre's perspective? Are you getting back into it? Because I'd like to hear you getting back into it and the first kind of enjoyment that you had.
So this is quite a fun one, really. So I stopped being in shows in 2018, I'd say. That's when things were at the peak of not feeling well, not being well. I was in an a cappella society, so we do bits like that, but it's not as kind of intrusive into your life as proper being on stage. But once I'd been through recovery and I started experiencing joy like I never had before, started getting my emotions back, I was like, I've got to get on stage. I've got to try this out again. So at the end of 2021, of course, my favourite musical, Hairspray, they were auditioning. So I was like, I'm going for it. We're doing it. And the feeling of being back on stage under the lights was something that I can't even begin to describe. And it was my turning point to know, yeah, I'm getting there with recovery. And I even got this to just remember remember that I have the ability to feel joy, and that the eating disorder doesn't take over every single part of me, and that I can defeat it if it does decide to rear its ugly head.
And you're still really active in the musical world?
I am indeed. I've just done, oh my goodness, I've just done 2 shows back to back, and now I'm on to my third. I think after this I'll take a bit of a break.
Oh, you
I'm
say
very
that, and I don't
tired.
believe you. I think you'll
I
go on
mean,
for the
there
next
was
one.
an audition for the Addams Family that I may go to. But no, if I will take a break because I need it. I'm very tired. But yeah, theatre is a massive part of my life, and now that I've weight restored and I'm back to being my old happy self, that it's such a dream to be on the stage again.
That's really wonderful to hear. So is there anything that you could offer as like a supportive message to people that might be struggling or thinking they might have issues, challenges?
Eating disorders, they are really scary and they are really dangerous, but they're not something that we can't face, as I evidenced. And a lot of people who are able to seek the treatment that they need, they recover and they get back the quality of life that they once had. So what I would say to people, if they are in this space where they are struggling, is recovery is worth it, and that everybody is worthy of recovery. And you'll never look back after you've taken that route.
That's a fantastic message. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you joining us today and helping spread a message that's often talked about. I think it's really, really important.
No
So thank you
worries.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today, and hope to see you in future Brave Talks.